it's me again, the unprofessional gardener, and today we're going to talk about nettles and do something about nettles. This is what I euphemistically call my eco garden. Wild for the wild insects and creatures or whatever kind they are. I suppose if I'm really honest, it's very hard keeping the garden on show night, and this is just let waste because basically it's hard work. There's another little garden at the other side of the wall, but it is wildlife. You're recommended to leave space for wildlife, so this is for wildlife. And today we're going to look at nettles. Now, nettles is the bane of every child's life. I don't think there's any of us that have never been stung by a nettle, certainly not rural children, maybe in the middle of high-rise flats. I've never seen one, or the middle of the desert, as somebody suggested. But we all know nettles. We've all been stung. We've all picked the docking leaf to wipe away the pain. But the poor and much maligned nettle is a very, very important plant. It's full of richness and goodness and all sorts of advantages to human beings and to plants. For example, in the human life, there's minerals, vitamins, and all sorts of, it has medicinal values. I've heard the expression nature's pharmacy, and it's a very real expression because there's so many things in nature that are good for us, and but you have to know what you're working with, and herbalists would know, and amateurs like me wouldn't, but you know some things that are harmless. One of them is nettles. Another thing is hawthorns, just the hawthorn leaf, full of goodness. These are just things when we were children plucked and eat them willy-nilly and thought nothing of it. But what I'm going to do today is use nettles for plant feed, and the reason is because it's a lovely non-chemical plant feed full of potassium and nitrogen. Now, I don't pretend to know a lot about these things, but I know that just from reading up about them, listening to programs like Gardener's World or T.G. Caher's Gary Glass, they're very good for plants. And nettles are full of them. They absorb goodness from the soil, and they in turn feed it back into the soil. So we'll just have a look around here. There's not many here. There's loads and loads of rough things. I think that's called Alexandria, and cows apparently know not to eat it. I remember my mother used to say the cows never touch that because I think it's Alexandria. That's the good old-fashioned briars, millions of them about. Loads of these are ferns, loads of ferns, that type of thing. Then we'll have nettles, like there's our nettle, don't want to touch it, dotted in and out among the things. I think that's the leaves of buttercups. There's millions of plants growing all over the place. These actually here are wild raspberry bushes. I think back in the day, a parish priest, a former parish priest in this parish, was a horticulturalist, and he planted a lot of raspberry bushes. This, I think, might be the remnants of it, so they're not particularly wild. They're sort of a half-cultured one. They're what's left of what was once the parish garden, and there's a good growth of them. I get loads and loads to make jam of them every year. These are a lovely wee flower here. I pick them up just and put them on the May altar and things like that. They're a lovely wee wild flower. The amazing thing is that all flowers really basically started off wild, and through time they've got cultured and swankified up, but they really, everything started as wild. It had to. It just grew in the ground. And dandelions, now the dandelions are lovely when the sun comes out. Look at the way they open out. So that's as nice as any flower, any cultivated flower. They open out, and there again, they're great. They can make wine. My uncles up in County Fermanagh used to make a dandelion wine, and I never tasted it. But anyway, that's what they did. So this is wild garden. Not that many nettles are kind of dotted in and out among the place. But I just know where there's a wee patch, so we'll go there and gather the wee patch. First of all, I'm going to put on my gloves. It's nettles we're dealing with, and they have a fair sore old sting. We're going to have two pairs of gloves. So we have a second pair of gloves for extra protection. So this is just an example of a nettle. I'll just pull it. Now, that wee fella would give you a queer sting. Right on the tip, I think where the sting is, and get you on your skin and you go into a little white bump. But you only have to briskly, very, very gently touch it, and the skin or the sting takes effect. So, as I say, the bane of every child's life that ever ran through a field. But that's what they're like. That's how you recognise them. That's a fairly vicious looking one. Some of them are a bit less harmful looking, but still they have the same old sting. These are sort of right wee. When they have that purpley shade on them, they're fairly good, strong stingers. Over here now, these ones are more green. Now there's been wee animals or something like that, but they're more green. But when they're in among the grass like that, it's hard to get them. But there's some wee insects have been eating them, but they're just not as vicious looking as the purple boys. They're the real stingers, but they all sting. They're actually similar to getting an injection, and whatever it is, the poison or the little sting right in the tip, it's just it's got the same effect as a hypodermic needle, and it leaves a far worse sting than a hypodermic. I mean, people are getting the COVID injection now. It's in and out, and they don't feel it mostly. You feel that for most of a day afterwards, and then it goes into a stage, you know, when it's wearing off, it goes into a stage of sort of numbness. It's a wee boy that you have to keep an eye on, and thistles and things like that aren't even as harmful. Nettles, you don't want to run through a field of nettles and your bare legs or your arms bare. You can nearly just pull them, maybe not. Now, one of the things about nettles is, and I've learned this from the gardening programs, I remember years ago when we were young, older people would talk about making nettle soup. One of the thoughts that occurred to me was, it's a wonder, you know, I wonder did the people during famine times use things like that, because the potato crop failed in Ireland in the mid-1800s, and that caused the terrible famine. But there's many other things that are edible and can be used for foods, like nettles. And I remember somebody saying this, I wonder people didn't go to turnips and things like that, but potatoes were the staple food. But it's just, nature's full of things that are edible, and you know, if you're really stuck, they would keep you fed, at least for a while. But one of the things I've picked up from the gardening programs is all the things that can be made with nettles. One of them is beer, which I must try, but you need yeast for that. Tea, soup, that's the edible things. And then, of course, what we're doing today is fertiliser, and it's a non-chemical natural fertiliser, and apparently it's great for tomatoes and cabbages and those type of plants. And you can nearly tell to look at it, it's so lovely and green and rich looking. And apart from the fact that it has a terrible sting, and it's a little devil of a plant, it's a beautiful plant, and you have perfect, well, it's like everything in nature, it's nearly perfect to look at. Look at the shape of that, the gorgeous shape, and the colour. And I can get the smell of it so strong now. I mean, technology is great, but it hasn't got to the stage where we can smell through the camera. But there's a lovely, small, strong, pungent smell, and not an obnoxious smell. A nice smell, like a nice earthy, rich smell, and that would nearly tell you that it is full of goodness. Anyway, we'll just get a few more here, and we'll I was out walking with my dog earlier, and along the roadside there's millions of them, but of course you have to be careful. Doesn't matter for making it into fertiliser, but if you're making it into something edible like drinks or that, you have to think of the dog toilet along the roadside, so it has to be a certain height. Things over a couple of feet are safe enough, but down below, blackberries, nettles, anything like that, there are apt to have the wee dogs lifting up their legs. Right, so we're at the final stage now of making our liquid feed. These are our nettles, lovely, lovely nettles. I've just clipped them up a bit with the scissors, just maybe clip along. Of course, it has reduced the volume of them in the bucket. And but the smell The smell actually, can you smell it? The smell is just lovely, it's so rich. It's lovely, I'm not going to put my nose any nearer. So, that's our nettles, and all we do is put, this water's just off the boil, so we just pour in and pour in the boiling water. And you can, it's pungent now, it's a strong, earthy smell, lovely, lovely smell. You can smell the goodness in it actually. And obviously you have to leave that for a while. So I'll just stir. Getting a nice earthy smell. And already you can see that the water is coloured. Now, granted there's going to be some dirt and earth and clay and stuff in among that liquid, but it's already there's a noticeable colour coming off it, and it's lovely. Look at that. Now, one of the schools of thought says that you can do that and leave it for 20 minutes, and obviously then it's cooled down a bit and it's ready to put on the plants. I'd say leave it for a couple of weeks. The TG Cahir version that I watched said leave it a couple of weeks until this rots and decomposes, and apparently it stinks to the high heavens. You'd have to put it outside in your greenhouse or whatever. It leaves an awful smell, but it is really good, strong, effective plant feed, and I would go for leaving it longer. Now, if you're stuck, you can use it, as one school of thought says, after the 20 minutes or half an hour. I'll just take a wee bit of the... Oh no, there's not much colour in that now yet. There's more colour yesterday. Oops. There's a delicate colour. It's a delicate colour, it's not a lot yet. But it has a lovely smell, lovely earthy smell. Maybe leave it another while, maybe been a wee bit premature there. But it is, it's lovely and green, look at that. And I would say that the sting has gone out of it now at this stage, but you couldn't put your hand in it because it's boiling hot. That's our lovely nettle feed. Non-chemical, pure, natural plant feed, and really not an awful lot difference if you were making nettle tea and probably nettle soup and such like. Very delicate colour of it just at the moment. So we're going to leave that and put it on our plants. When it has decomposed and broken down into thicker mixture, you can add hot water to it and water it down a wee bit, and then just spray it over the plants. Put it in the spraying can and spray it over the plants. But as of now, that's an example of our lovely nettle plant feed, and I guarantee that is going to do my plants a world of good. One of the things I did say is that where nettles are growing is actually a sign of good soil, and I thought, well, I know all over Ireland and all over the country the poor soil is usually full of rushes, and in fact people will classify the soil and say, oh, it's full of rushes as poor soil, and it just occurred to me, you never see nettles growing where rushes are growing, so there's probably something in that, and there's a richness in it where there's probably not in rushes, but there's a richness in that plant, and apparently it's a sign of good soil. It grows where soil is good. It's a good sign of the soil, and it extracts riches and nutrients and nitrogen and all those things from the soil, and then in time feeds it back in. So it's like nature. Everything is cycled and recycled and used and not wasted and those things. So that's our humble old nettle. You can get the smell of that the minute you walk into the kitchen. You can get the lovely rich smell of it. And in the famous words of every cook that ever existed, this is one I made earlier. And this is the one I made. Look at that. Look at the difference. It's very good. So you can see a definite strong colour there, and it's continuing to decompose. It's cold, that's nice and cold now. But a really good strong smell of that. I'll just take a cup of the newly made one. So that's the newly made one, and this is yesterday, so that's like nice white wine. This is like nice nettle juice. But I love the smell. It's absolutely lovely. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's earthy and natural and good and non-obnoxious and all those things. There's both of them. Both of them are gorgeous. If I hadn't got that much, I would spray it on the vegetables before the flowers, because the flowers are, they'll grow, and they're a bonus if they grow well. But the vegetables are for eating and using, and they're more important. That's food, so it's more important. So if I had only a limited amount, or I didn't make much, I would definitely the carrots, the broad beans, the tomatoes, the herbs, all those edible things, I would use it on that, and then anything left over, put it on the flowers. That's it for now. This has been your amateur-professional gardener on New Ireland TV, a new TV station for a New Ireland. Keep watching, there's loads more on the way.